Shut up, Jar Jar. No, we're not. And no, you're not. Because the P is in town now. Right. The Professional Esports Association. We'll put it that way. I mean, the first thing that I think when I see that name is I'm like, the P. Right. Well, you guys can see from the title. There's lots of fun ways to horse around with this name, but enough horsing around, enough messing around. It's time for some coffee. I'm sure you guys can tell that I've had some coffee already. Definitely woke up pretty good today. Felt good, felt energized. And, certainly helps that we have some more news to talk about. So last night, NA time basically, so we're over here in EU. So obviously when things come out in North America, happens in the Nochi for us. So last night, Professional Esports Association launches. Holy hell. It's pretty sick. I just find this fascinating, right? It's super interesting from a whole bunch of different angles, but this one's fun because, not so long ago, massive uproar, right? WESA has launched, and WESA, however you want to pronounce it, right? They launched at the beginning of the year, and they brought together teams, top-tier teams, Fnatic, et cetera, the top-tier teams, to work together and kind of become this group that was going to look out for the players. Although I think the real thing was mainly just, banding together to have more power when it came to selling, marketing, all that sort of stuff, right? Teams make more money, players then make more money. It kind of goes down, and that's the idea behind WESA. It seems now that the teams that we were all wondering, right? We were all wondering, where are these teams when it comes to WESA, right? Cloud9, TSM, these massive brands that are also involved in Counter-Strike and have been for a good bit of time. Where were they when WESA was rolling around? And well, now we have our answer. A few months later, seems like these guys have managed to band together. It's 7 teams. Team Solo Mid, Cloud9, Team Liquid, Counter Logic Gaming, Immortals, Energy Esports, what's up, Shaq? Complexity Gaming. They've all banded together to make this organization that I think is pretty much going to be the counterpart, right, to WESA. To WESA. Yeah. WESA. So it seems to me that this is very much in line one with the other, right? WESA has ESL Pro League. They have their own league. The teams are participating in that league. They have to participate in that league, right? And it's just that. So you have that structure over there. And so it's like the Professional Esports Association basically saw what WESA did. We're like, right, okay, and did the same thing over in North America. And they've already made this pretty clear, at least in the press release that came out last night, that it is going to be a North American league, and with a focus on North American teams, it seems. And so these big teams here that we have, most of them, well, all of them pretty much, running North American rosters, Immortals, I guess, are the exception, are going to be a part of this. So interesting, to say the least. Just because that adds another league onto an already stacked schedule. And so first thing that I tweet last night when I see the news, and I'm just like, okay then. So now we have 4 $1 million leagues basically that are going to be trying to compete in the space. And so this gets really fun because you think, right, well, there's 4 leagues, right? Okay, good. But 2 of those leagues are different because 2 of those leagues have actually got the teams involved in the infrastructure. And so really, it kind of puts WESA with Pro League and PEA with their league kind of ahead of the others, right? And so if you're FACEIT and if you're E-League, right, you got to be wondering, well, crap, what's going to go on now for us, right? Because we don't have that kind of structure there to ensure that we'll have these teams participating, right? And that we'll be drawing the viewership and that, we'll be able to make the money enough to be able to actually run the thing. So it gets really fun. The first thing that I think is, right, okay, this makes it serious, right? Because now it was already more difficult enough for 3 teams or for with 3 leagues for the teams to participate, for the commentators to participate, right? It's now there's another one that's being added into the bunch. And so I think this is just going to accelerate what I was talking about at the beginning of the year with the players, where I was encouraging them to just participate in 2 leagues, right? If you participate in 3 leagues, it's going to be nonstop. You're never going to have any time to rest. You're never going to have any time to improve your game. You're just going to be basically grinding official matches day in, day out, and you're never going to have any time. And so some teams have kind of wound up that way now. I mean, Virtus Pro not so much, but Navi, for example, not participating in the ECS, not participating in Face It's League. They're participating in 2 out of 3, right? Now, I wonder how this is going to break down for some of these teams, because it really does seem to me now that it's going to be, you participate maybe in 2 leagues, and it could even go so far as to say, right, that it could really just fracture everything. That we could have that split now between the North American leagues in E-League and PEA, and we could have the European leagues in Face It and Pro League, right? North American teams stay in North America, EU teams stay in EU, and then the 2 meet when there's a big LAN, right? But that's not super attractive for these leagues, because we all know it. I mean, obviously the North American teams have huge fans, but EU provide the best CS, and so you're going to get the most viewers when you have the European teams, which is why you're always, as a tournament organizer, going to battle and bend over backwards and do what you can to make sure that you have a few of those top-tier European teams participating in your league, participating in your event, because more people are going to tune in to watch a higher tier of CS, right? And so right now, it's just going to be really interesting to see how it breaks down in 2017. The other thing that I was kind of leery about is the fact that they're starting 17th of January. And so they aren't wasting any time. It's like right out the gates. Halfway through January, boom, we're going to get into it. But how does this line up, A, with other leagues that we're going to try and move into the space, individual events as well, usually coming out of the holidays. You might have some standalone events, one-off kind of events, in a stadium or something like that, not so much the leagues. Now you're going to have a league, but I think the big question for everybody is wasn't that supposed to be when the next major was going to roll around? And so you're going to have, towards the end of the year, you're going to have major qualifiers and the minors and all of that, hoo-ha running around basically in the last month and a half of the year, it seems to me. And then you're going to have this league that is basically starting off with its big, there has to be a lot of fanfare around it. I'm still wondering where they're going to do the production, where they're going to do all this. We don't really have any information on that. We just know that they're going to do a league. We don't know who's actually going to be running the league for them. How is all that going to work when you have the major that's going to be starting up in that time as well? Seems like January is supposed to be the major month. I still think personally that that's too early. I wouldn't be surprised to see it get pushed back, just because January, like coming straight out of the holidays. I don't know. Do you really want to start that early in the year? Personally, I would think February would be a better month. But we'll see how it breaks down. It just feels like already 2017, beginning of 2017 is going to get real tight. 4 leagues looking to operate another, and like most of them are running on 10-week kind of schedules here. That's pretty tough already this year alone, right? You had E-League coming in with a 10-week schedule, Pro League with a 10-week schedule, ECS trying to figure out where they can get their matches in between those 2 big guys who basically seem to have split the scene. And now you're going to have PEA who want to run a 10-week league as well. It's going to be impossible to avoid overlap, basically. And so I wonder how things are going to work out with these leagues, where the teams are going to play, where are the teams going to put their focus. It seems like revenue share is the big goal here for the PEA as well, which is obviously a goal for WESA. PEA, they're talking about how the orgs are going to get a cut of the profits, but also the players are going to get a cut of the profits. And so that seems that it's going to be a much more, ideally it's going to be a much more lucrative deal for teams and players that are participating in this league. If they're getting a profit share, then all of a sudden you're fighting for the prize money, but you're also going to be able to get, if the league is a success, you can also get something on top, and who knows just how much that's going to be. But real interesting. Who knows if there's going to be profit at all, right? You think about it, right? Oh, split of the profits, interesting. But all of the costs involved in putting this together and running a league is not cheap, and it is not easy to make money hosting esports events. And so these, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a real challenge. And this is still early days, right? It's just they've announced it. Great. Okay, we have 7 teams banding together. Great. Who's going to do their sales? Who's going to actually mount the league? All this kind of stuff that needs to come up afterwards, basically, or that I would have been interested to see in the press release itself so that we could get a real full picture on it. It doesn't seem like it's going to come up just yet. And so we get to speculate a little bit and wonder. But sorry. What you have to wonder right now is just, okay, it sounds like it sounds like Professional Esports Association, right? They tried to go one step further than WESA. WESA said, there's going to be players involved in the board. There's going to be players involved. There's going to be a player representative and blah, blah, blah. And it seems like right now, PEA, went one step further and said, the players are going to be directly. They didn't skip it. They didn't fuzz it. They didn't bring it up afterwards. It was right out the gates. The players are going to be involved in the decision making. And so, it just feels a little bit like, a little one up here, one up there, back and forth. And it's a fun game that we get to watch. This is why it's so fascinating. There's so many layers to this whole thing. That seems really fun. And just looking from the outside, right? Just looking from the outside, it's just like, okay, how is this going to break down? I mean, for me as a commentator, I also found it super interesting that the commentators are also going to get a cut of the profits the same way that the players are going to get a cut, which is really interesting because that's unheard of, absolutely unheard of. Never, like, as a commentator, right? You are hired to do a gig. You are hired to do a 2-day event, a 5-day event, a league. But it's very cut and dried. You're a contractor. They bring you in. You do the league. Basta, get out. Right here, it seems like that it could also open up options for commentators to be much more involved in the process. If you are getting a cut of that money, that's really fascinating to me. Unheard of, right? Like I'm saying. So from a commentary perspective, and so really curious to see how all that's going to pan out as well. Because that's like the holy grail if you're a commentator. That could be right. Okay, you can really set up shop, make it a home base, make this league your priority at that point, right? So really, really fun. Yeah, I mean, they also say that the players are going to be involved in establishing the rule sets and how the leagues are going to be played, tournament format, all of this sort of stuff. I mean, I think that's interesting. I did a video not too long ago about admins and how I think that there needs to be some kind of general rule set applied to tournaments, so that as far as format changes, right? You can change a format based on how many days you have to work with, right? If you're running a tournament, okay, then maybe you change the format. But as far as the rules are concerned, punishment, penalties basically for breaking the rules, these sorts of things, I'm looking for some kind of rule set that goes across the board everywhere, right? That applies to all leagues. And so I wonder now if this is going to be something that, for example, PEA, WESA, and other league organizers are going to be able to kind of work together on, or is this just going to delay things further? And they're going to say, no, we're two different companies, we're two different entities, right? And so we have our rules, they have their rules, and there you go. I feel like that would be detrimental to what we're trying to do here, which is basically establish a baseline across the board. If it is possible to hit that baseline, I think it'll clear up a lot of these admin situations, et cetera, that keep cropping up sometimes with these rulings, these decisions. What do we do here? What do we do there? If these orgs can actually come together and start working together to get that up to a certain standard, right? There's a stable line where everything is. That would be much more interesting to me. And so I'm curious, if there's going to be a bit of a back and forth between these two orgs that represent teams, but then also other orgs, ECS, DreamHack, the other big organizations that are running tournaments in the space. I feel like there needs to be a sit down of admins, if that makes sense. I don't think that the league organizers or whatever need to get involved so much, but the admins who are representing these leagues or who are running these leagues, right? I feel like they need to kind of sit down and put their heads together and just say, and really put together a document. And I mean like a book that is going to cover everything point for point. This rule was infringed. This rule was broken. This is the penalty for breaking that rule. Bam, bam, bam. Go down the list and really establish something that can be applied to all leagues. That's what's really interesting to me. So if that comes about, if these different associations are able to work together, I think that's something that could benefit us. That could be interesting. As far as the teams right now, and as far as how these two big associations are going to work, obviously you have other big players, E-League and Face It. How all of these are going to try and work around each other. Because don't have any illusions, right? Esports is interesting. They do try and work together, but at the same time, they're competitors. They're competing leagues. They're competing for the same sponsor money. They're competing for time and for your eyeballs. And so it is a little bit of a tricky scenario now where another player is going to come into it. And so there was kind of a balance, it seemed, between Pro League, between ECS, between E-League, right? It felt like there was a little bit of a balance coming into this year. And now another player comes in who wants another big chunk of time in the schedule. It's going to be really fun to watch and see how all this breaks down. So just some quick thoughts on the whole thing. Whether they're trying to take over the world, I don't think there's anything nefarious at work. I really do think it is just about, right, okay, if we band together, we might be able to do bigger things. Sounds familiar? Room on Fire? But that's the idea, right? If we band, if we're individuals, there's only so much you can do. But if we band together as a group, it can get much more interesting as far as sponsorship sales, as far as, what you can actually do with a group structure like that. And so this is just another 7 teams who are deciding, right, okay, we don't want to be a part of WESA. We want to run our own thing. And so now we're going to have these two associations, and we'll have to see just how, can they meet in the middle. We'll find out. Have a nice weekend, guys. See you Monday.